My family is still Roman Catholic and they still pray to Mary and the saints. Will this cause them to be kept out of heaven even though they claim to trust Christ for their salvation?
Maybe. I mean, it's a gross act of idolatry to be praying to Mary and to the saints. That's a very serious matter. And I think that there are thousands, perhaps millions of people within the Roman Catholic Church who really are trusting in Christ and Christ alone for their salvation, not trusting the way of salvation that their own church teaches. So that's the happy inconsistency of our friends who are in Rome. But they have to understand, as I'll be talking about this afternoon, that Rome has categorically, consistently, and clearly denied the gospel. And no matter all other good things that they do, opposing abortion and affirming the Trinity and all of that, the anathematizing of the gospel at the sixth session of the Council of Trent, which has never been rescinded and reaffirmed as recently as the Catholic Catechism, disqualifies Rome, in my opinion, as a valid church. And I think it's an apostate body. And so with that in mind, I believe that every true Christian who really is trusting in Christ has a moral obligation to leave that communion and to identify themselves with the church, not that it's a perfect church, but a church that is a valid church, a church that doesn't deny an essential truth of the Christian faith. And as long as the gospel is an essential truth of the Christian faith, you don't want to be in a communion that denies it. And you get into this kind of stuff where, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I'm praying to his mother. Or I'm praying to these saints. I'm attributing to his mother and to the saints the powers of intercession that belong only to the mediator, to Christ himself. And now, I think that you can be a Christian and have all kinds of error in your theology. All of us have error mixed in with truth in our faith. But some of this error is extremely dangerous. You know, for example, most people who go to churches, whatever communion they're in, are not all that deeply informed about the theology of that particular communion or what's going on even in the worship service. I, for example, being a student of Roman Catholic theology, could not possibly participate in a Mass because I know what the doctrine of the Mass is, that the church teaches that you have a real sacrifice of Christ in the Mass. Unbloody, to be sure, but it's still a sacrifice. And again, at Trent, it is defined in terms of sacrifice. I had a friend who was in the Roman Catholic communion, was leaving it. We had a discussion about that. He went to his priest and complained about this business of the sacrifice, and the priest told him, he said, well, your friend doesn't know the Latin of what we really teach. And he came with that to me, and so I showed him Trent, and I said, you ask your priest what the Latin term sacrificium means in English. And that was the end of it. It's a real sacrifice. I mean, there are priests out there who don't believe it's a real sacrifice, even an unbloody one. But that's the official teaching of the church. Now, how can you believe in the once-for-all atonement of Christ and participate in a celebration of his being sacrificed again, as unbloody as that may be? That's ghastly. Other than that, I don't have opinion.